Matt here. So I'm going to have to start looking for work again as an interim thing. It's not what I want to be doing. I want to be working on Taco. I want to be studying theory. Ultimately, the best thing for the project and the community is for me to get this thing completely nailed out. But there are sufficient barriers at the moment so that in the interim, I'm probably just going to have to return to practice. And that can be difficult because the places which hire provisional psychologists are quite few. And because I've really been put through it, I've got some restrictions on my practice. So I have to work at a place where there are already psychologists, so I can't be the only prob psych in a building. And you know what? If I'm honest, that's actually a good one. That should just be a default thing for all provisional psychologist placements. Like what Henny's Health Group was doing was, if I'm honest, should be criminal. But it's the labour market that determines where people end up working, and the skills that I had, which was as a cleaner, someone who works with people who've got the really serious problems, facing exceedingly serious barriers to having a worthwhile life. That's what my skill set is. That's who I work with. But where I can work is probably, unfortunately, vocational rehabilitation, and that's an industry which is based in insurance and also to a large extent based on white collar crime. Right, I'm going to walk through some of the problems with that now. Actually quite enjoy that work to an extent. So what you do in that job is that there's an injured worker who's on a insurance payment. They need to transition from one stage of life to another. So what we do is that we work with them and their doctor to get them working something else. Or there's what's called an early intervention, where there's an incident in the workplace. I did a video previously on that in the Australian Federal Police. If I was able to just do early interventions, I'd be very, very happy doing this kind of work. It's the new employer stuff which gets really dodgy, and that's where psychologists are required based on the legislation to work, not to work, where there is a requirement for psychologists. So what happens in that is that you need to understand is that institutions, they work in titles and they think in titles and reports. There are very few people who are scientists in these institutions. And the role of psychs in vocational rehabilitation, whilst hypothetically is meant to provide an expert opinion regarding a worker, in reality in this system what happens is that they just end up saying whatever the insurance company wants them to say, because the insurance company is paying them. They're contracted through their firm to do this work, and that means that if they don't do what the insurance company says, they don't get repeat referrals and that kind of thing. And I would have insurance companies saying very clearly, I need this person off their payments, I need 3 jobs they can do. Now, the issue with that is that it ends up with this methodological problem with research. So when you are defining a study, you usually have a sample size. You start out and you get that, from that you get your statistical power, and you have your variables which you operationalize, and through that you're able to see how these ideas, these constructs interact, and at the end of that study you're able to make a decision about it. Now, qualitative research, which is something that I have never done a study in. I've only done one study, that was for my honours thesis, but I understand the research method. Qualitative research, it's meant to be different. It's meant to be it's meant to give a richer idea about a specific phenomenon or the study of a specific individual, and that's what something called labour market analysis is kind of meant to be, right? It's a mixed methods research kind of study, and what we do is that we need to get 3 jobs that a person could do and 3 employers who would be potentially happy to hire them. But the problem is that because there isn't a restriction on the sample size, what you can do is that you can just keep calling employers until you get 3 people to say yes. And so the variable in what's in the labour market analysis, which is the labour market, is not well operationalized in that kind of study format. It's not operationalized at all. You're missing out on the one variable which is meant to be measured, the labour market, right? You're not measuring the market, the interaction between supply and demand. Like you're measuring how many calls a junior psychologist who's got a gun pointed at their head, because if they don't do this they lose their job, can make in a period of time, and how much they can finesse these people into saying what they need to say using all of the incorrect interviewing methods, because that's what's incentivized here. Can do, and that's what you're measuring, right? The term in research methods for this is an artifact. It's where the research method itself is being measured rather than the variable which is meant to have been measured. And the entire industry revolves around this, and it's all based on the incentives at play. So if I apply for one of these jobs, I'm going to be put into this position again, and that's likely the only industry which is going to, it's the industry which is most likely to hire me, because I've got friends working in it, and I also have a lot of real world experience with having to go through adverse life experiences, and that work is all about working with people who are going through very complex life transitions. So yeah, that's my concern. Maybe what I've said is a bit clear as mud, but that's the biggest issue with labour market analysis with vocational rehabilitation. And I'm going to have to, in the interim, I'm going to have to return to work. Taco's still going to be running. It's still going to be running as a side project. It's a bit awkward because I don't want to rip off an employer, but at the same time, this project is the most important thing to me, and if I can keep it running, I will.